So
talking about, so tonight we're
and
doing a meetup. We do them at the end of every month, the last Thursday, and we're going to be talking about meditation tonight. But I'm really excited because it's one that I actually haven't done with Elle yet. She's going to lead it. It's called Sitting in Your Power meditation.
well, it's a form of that. So that's a pretty
Yeah,
broad, it's a classification of a thing to do.
it's a
Not
genre,
necessarily
meditation genre.
necessarily a specific meditation, but yeah, we were just planning it before we started recording today, and I am pretty excited about going into it with everybody tonight. So I think
Yeah,
it'll be a really interesting experience for everybody who is able to make it.
yeah. I remember when I first started, like working with Elle and she talked about, meditating and I was like, yeah, that's really good. I'll work that into my schedule. And I did at the beginning and then I really didn't after that. Like I would forget,
Yeah.
And now that I'm practicing connecting to the other side more, like it's part of my daily regimen. I can't, it's like a vitamin. I have to take it. It's like a ADD medicine, which I forgot to take my ADD medicine today, but I have not forgotten to meditate. Okay. Like it's true.
So halfway there. You're halfway solved neurologically.
But what I'm saying is like how I just it balances and centers me. It's so important. If you because basically if you're trying to um have a perception of the other side, it's not it's a very you have to put yourself in a different place than you would just like doing earth life. You have to kind of open yourself up in a way that you really can't do. I really can't do without just the meditation. It's like a ritual that kind of helps me open up
Yeah.
my spirit to those sensitivities.
It's like
Um,
prayer. It's like a quiet centering. It because we're so distracted by everything in our daily lives going on around us all the time, physical stimulus constantly coming in.
yeah.
Meditation is a turning inward. So it's a shifting of your perception inward, which is heightening all of those more subtle sensitivities that we have to spiritual things or
Hmm.
personal things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a contemplative silent space, and silence is not something we get a lot of today.
Right. Exactly. And also I feel like it puts me into a more solid knowing of really who I am because with that quote, we're not physical beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a physical or temporal
Right.
experience with life on earth. I am more than just who I present to be today or what my schedule looks like today or,
Right.
my list of
Your
tasks.
emotions today.
Yeah, I'm so much more than
Today I
that.
am grumpy. Tomorrow I am sleepy, like Seven Dwarf it.
Today I'm hungry. Right. I'm just so much more than my physical experience. And it helps me take a step out of that limiting framework and to uh, what else am I? What other truth is there? I remember getting specific. We weren't really planning on talking about this, but I just want to throw it out there. The day my son passed away was a horrific day for me, like the worst day of my life. It was awful. But I wanted to understand what his experience was like. I started reading a lot of near death experiences after he died because I'm like, what is it like for him? Where is my child? Like, he's in heaven. I know that. He's with family. Okay, I know that. He's with God. Good. But like, what does it look like? What is his experience? Give me some more specifics. And so I started reading. I was looking for all the commonalities so I could say, okay, this feels like this is true. And I read like, I've read dozens of books and lots of them are compilations and there's several experiences. I've read over 200 experiences by now. And so I prayed. I'm like, what was his experience like that day? Because the truth isn't just my truth. The truth is like, what also did he experience? Let's balance it. So I got to have this spiritual experience where I experienced the peace and the beauty and the amazingness of basically being reborn on the other side and how fantastic that was for him. So then I could hold on to that while I'm still struggling here. It doesn't take away my
Hmm.
experience, but it's just like show me more of the truth. So for me, meditation is pull me out of my physical experience today and remind me who I really am on a deeper level.
Yeah. Broaden my perspective.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. More to come tonight. If you don't know about our meetups, we do have monthly meetups. So the whole point one of the big purposes of us starting this podcast is that we wanted to create a community around people of faith or people who have a desire to learn, to grow, to develop with spiritual gifts. Particularly intuitive spiritual gifts, but really any and all of them. I think there's no harm in growing anything,
Yeah.
ask and you shall receive. So, to get a community and support around people who have experiences or who have interests in learning these things. And so, in our weekly or our monthly meetups, it's kind of a gathering place. They're free. They're the same time every month, unless one of us has like a huge life event. Last month we had to skip because both of us were out of town.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a place for all of us to come. You can ask any questions you have. You can meet like-minded people. You can we do a bunch of like fun sensitivity building exercises and things like that. So and different kind of games, games to play, intuitive building games. So they're a lot of fun. So just a quick plug for that.
Yeah. And if I know this isn't going to be posted until next week, people are going to miss out on this specific meetup. But something I'm really, really excited about that's coming up starting in May, I believe, is Elle is doing a new class. It's a 8-week class, I believe.
8-week class. Yep.
Yeah. But what's cool about it, it's basically mimicking the class that I started taking last January, and that I've been doing for over a year now. And she's going to be like taking those basic, most important elements and putting into this class to help people grow these
Develop.
gifts. Yeah. And like, I'm sure you'll be doing lots of meditation in there. So,
Yeah. We'll
yeah.
go over the whole section on meditation. Yeah,
Hmm.
so a lot of people have asked when I was going to do another mentorship or like an introduction to spirit communication, and or if I teach this. And I thought about it, I prayed about it, and the answer was like I should do this. I'm having a baby in the fall, so
Woo!
gotta fit that in before my life gets even a little bit more hectic. So I'll be having this 8-week course where it's going to be an intensive. It's going to be pretty intense, but the hope is to get a spiritual boost and alignment to put you into the place where you can grow whatever that gift is that you have. And all of us have the capacity. I heard a really great analogy the other day from a friend of mine who is also a spirit communicator in Southern California. And she was saying, it's like singing. Everyone can learn to sing. We all have the capacity to do that and express ourselves. It's just a God-given part of human nature. Some people come into this world like born to sing, like they just have, that quality to them. But everybody can do it. Some people might want to get up on stage and some people might want to do it in their bedroom, but everybody can do it. And I think spiritual gifts are the same way. So if you have an interest, if you feel like you've had experiences and you want to develop that further, if you feel like you've never had an experience, but you are just interested in what that is or what that feels like, or if it's a capacity for you, maybe it's for you. Go ahead and send us an email. Or you can contact us on our Facebook site, which is through our website. You can find all the links to all of these things.
Yeah.
I think it's also, if you're on the YouTube, I think it's also linked at the bottom in the information section of the YouTube page. So,
Yeah. Our website
um,
is just throughtheveilpodcast.com.
yeah, real simple.
Pretty straightforward. Um, yeah, it's gonna be cool because I've had a lot of people in my life that are like, "Hey, I want to work on this." We've shared with each other that we both have this natural interest, in the other side. But I love the singing analogy because I have actually taught voice lessons before. And, some people do come with more like natural talent, but sometimes people with natural talent don't take it as seriously and they don't practice as
Right,
much as people that don't have that natural talent. They develop their skills past maybe somebody who already came into the game with a little bit of advantage because they
right.
put in the time and the effort. So
Totally true. True
yeah.
fact about life.
All right, so today we want to talk about doubt, because it's normal when you're having these experiences to get in your head and be like, is this actually happening? Like I hear it from a lot of people that have lost a loved one. I think I'm having experiences with them, but I'm not really sure. Am I just wanting to? Am I
I'm
pretending?
imagining this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually am I imagining, was that just a dream? Like, did I
Mm,
just really wish it into existence because I just want it so bad?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I always say, like, you have to kind of go back to that childlike faith, of like a 6-year-old, where you have something happens and you just take it for what it is and you don't question, did that really happen? Do I deserve for this to happen? We can't overthink it. We just have to kind of see things with a little bit more of that childlike, faith.
faith.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting conversation because on the fact of doubt with spiritual gifts, and really it's a matter of doubt with faith and belief, right? These are synonymous words, slightly different context, but synonymous words of like, well, how do you know it's real? How do you know it's true? Well, the inverse to that is how do you know it's not true?
Mm,
Um, and in my own journey with this, like I say all the time, I'm a very rational person. I am a logical thinker. I am somewhat maybe more practical than many people are at times. And so it was very easy for most of my life to just write things off and logic my way out of it. Until it becomes consistent to the point where it's like, why do these things keep happening though? Like, if they don't happen to other people, why are they just happening to me? Um, I'm also a very creative person. I'm an artist, and I'm a writer. And so, um, oftentimes I think we can also write that off. I mean, the brain is a very powerful tool. Psychology, like the way that our mind is designed to fill in the gap and to function around things. Like today, I was reading an article about how particularly because I'm an artist, this is interesting to me, how there are colors that are not real, like they are not actually in the light spectrum. This is just our brain and our eyes, which only have certain cones to actually scientifically perceive certain colors. And our brain is going, okay, this is different and it doesn't fall into this or this. Let's just make it up. So we all just make it up, right? It's really easy to wonder if that's what's happening, to wonder if you're just filling in a gap, or you are just being superstitious about something, or you have such a desire for something to be true. Like, like in the midst of grief, you have such a desire to communicate, to see, to feel that loved one that is no longer physically with you, that you imagine it into existence. So I think it's a really true thing people deal with and struggle with of like, well, is this even real? Like, where's the proof? Where's the proof of this? Where's the
right.
proof of life after death? Right?
Yeah. I think I was lucky because after my son passed away, I already had some friendships where we could really speak openly about spiritual things. And so I think what helped me prove that I wasn't just crazy, I was actually having experiences with my son Wesley after he died, um, was that I would have a feeling about something like, I had a feeling like he's around the family a lot more than we realize. I one day specifically had this experience. And then um my friend Rachel, who produces this podcast, she told me, she's like, I just have this feeling that he's with you guys a lot more than you realize, but he doesn't want to always make himself known because he doesn't want to interrupt your day-to-day flow and cause disruption, but he's with you a lot. And I was like, that's literally, I had that thought yesterday and it felt like this epiphany, like something I needed to know. And you just, validated that. So it's kind of like sometimes we have people in our lives that will validate things where we're thinking it and they put words to it, or they, repeat the same thought we had. And you're like, okay, there is truth to this, or I'm not the only one thinking this.
Right. And I think oftentimes, like I was saying, with my experience, like so many things would occur just to me or for me or repetitive experiences in different circumstances that it's like it stacks up after a minute, right? What I
Yeah.
started to do was I started to keep a log of all of the things that started happening, all of the repetitive hits, the experiences, and I began to see like correlations
Mm.
between all of them. And I was like, there's gotta be something more to this. Um, a really frequently used word to describe this is called synchronicity, which means that like something happens in one circle of your life and then it's reflected in another one and then reflected in another one, like coincidences that just occur. I personally don't believe in coincidence. I don't believe in luck. But that is only because of all of the repetitive witnesses I've seen of all of these things over and over again. I think once you get a body of experience or testimony that something has occurred, it becomes a little bit more validated, a little bit more believable. And so, like in your circumstance with Rachel, you had had this thing that you hadn't informed her about at all. And
Hmm.
then she comes in and is probably pretty vulnerable by mentioning to you that she had this experience, but it was exactly what you needed and exactly the way you needed it. And was like, yeah, how'd you know? And like, how can that not be from the other side? How can that not be like intelligent intervention somewhere from somebody?
Yes, yes. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and she was telling me about a relationship with someone she had, and then he passed away unexpectedly. And I was like, does he? Because Wesley sends me hearts. My son sends me hearts. Sometimes, when you close your eyes and like the light and the darkness are kind of make shapes, they come together. Sometimes when I close my eyes, like the light and the darkness, the light will come together and just make the shape of a heart. And I'm like, oh, there's a heart. Or I see them, like I was driving just last week from California to St. George. And I've driven the road from California to St. George dozens of times in my life. And for some reason, I was actually felt in the moment like, I just needed to connect to Wesley because I'm quiet. I'm driving all by myself so I can really clear my mind. And as I'm doing that, I look up on the mountain in front of me and there's this huge shape of a heart. I've never seen it before. I don't know why. It's just like the rock gets darker. It's this big black heart. And I was like, wow, Wesley really is with me because I had the synchronicity of you should be thinking about it, like talk to Wesley or think about Wesley, and boom, here's a heart. So as I'm talking to this girl yesterday, she's telling me about this relationship and I was like, does he ever send you hearts? I just have this feeling like you're getting something from him. And she like told me later, she's like, as you were asking me that, I got a text from my aunt and it was this, she's trying to comfort her because she's still really like reeling from this loss. And her aunt sent her this picture of there's this little heart in the corner. And she said, this picture reminds me of you and this guy that she had has a relationship with. And there was a little heart in it. And that was synchronicity for her. Because I asked her, does he send you hearts? And then her aunt's text her this image and there's a heart in it in relation to
Right.
him. It's like, there you go.
Too many things line up all at
Mm-hmm.
one time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Signs are a huge thing for a lot of people, and I think they're really easy for everybody else to write off. But um, I think one of the big indicators is just like, how does it make you feel? And there's two halves of society right now. They're like, the feeling is everything, right? Like, you've got to lean into your emotion. And the other half is like, dude, that's not rational. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it's real, right?
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, like we're human beings with the capacity to feel something. And that is how half of how we perceive information and half of how our brain interprets information. So it is a valid indicator of something reasonable when it makes you feel a certain way. If it reminds you of that person and it gives you comfort and it becomes pattern, then who's to say it's not from them, right? It's just as likely to be that way as it is to not be that way. One of the main things that I used to do, especially at the beginning when I was still, there are signs are a huge thing to talk about. A really great story about a sign, but it's like so many people see certain things like birds. I'm like, birds are just outside doing bird stuff. Like, they're around, right? Just because you see a specific bird doesn't mean grandma's with you, right? Sometimes it does. If you have a feeling about that or you're questioning about that, I mean, my opinion is pray about it. Pray about it. How do you feel when you pray about it? What is your answer when you pray about it? Like if it gives you comfort, if you feel that peace, if you are prompted like you were at that moment before, like, oh, grandma, I'm remembering grandma right now, or I'm thinking about grandma right now. And then you see the sign that she's giving you. Like there's more to that.
Right.
But what made me a big believer in signs was I had been giving sessions for several years at this point, and people like the people would always bring in signs, and I'm like, guys, birds though, like, not just outside, bird stuff. And so I was feeling sassy. And so one of the spirits that I frequently communicate with is my brother-in-law. He passed the Christmas we got married in quite a dramatic way. He was a suicide. And so I actually know him better on the other side of the veil than I did in life. but I get sassy with him sometimes and he gets sassy back. So this one night I was like, okay, Joe, like if you're gonna give me a sign, I want a zebra. I want a zebra. That's what I want from you. And I don't want a zebra on TV. I don't want a zebra on a picture book. You know, my small kids, they have t tons of circus books, right? I'm like, I want a zebra. And if it has to be, or I know that this is all just nonsense.
Wow, that's a tall
Totally
order.
forgot about it. I did that late at night. I was feeling kind of grumpy. And so um the next day I had completely forgot about it. It was actually our anniversary. And we went on, you know, like a date. I think we got fondue or something like that. We have small kids. You really have to maximize the time you have together. But we didn't have, besides the fondue, we didn't have any huge plans. So we're like, we're gonna go walk around the mall. It's just right across the street. And we're like millennials. Malls were our generation. They're no longer anybody else's. They're dying, but they were, you know,
Yeah.
something that we were nostalgic about. I think we were planning on going in like Barnes and Nobles to like browse the books or something like that. But as we were wandering through the mall, there was like a big outdoor shop. And it was one of the last places that were open aside from the bookstore because it was getting kind of later. So we're like, we'll just take that, go through there. My husband is a huge survivalist, outdoorsy, camping type guy. And so we're like, we'll just wander through that and browse the things and then end up in the bottom floor and go to the bookstore. And as we entered this huge outdoor shop, I came face to face with a taxidermied zebra. Like I was talking to my husband, I turned and I like almost ran into it. And it was like, I mean, you frequently see like mountain lions and bears and stuff if they have taxidermy, right? Deer, elk, those kinds of things. There was a freaking zebra. No other African animals, just a zebra standing right in front of me. And it's like, holy shit, it's Joe. Okay. There it is. There's my sign. Completely forgot about it up until that moment the next day. So, like, I personally have had experiences with these, many more since that time, but they, the thing with signs and the things with that is like it directs your attention. It takes your attention to something, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like they have manipulated the universe to plant that thing. It's like, oh, here it is now, your moment. Look at it, and they're
Hmm.
directing you to that, right? So
Yeah.
Wesley is directing you to the heart on the mountain that you maybe never saw before, and
Right.
it's just shifting your perspective. And like, could that be coincidence? Maybe a couple times, but if it happens all the time, is it
So
coincidence in the
good.
most random places? Probably not. Probably not.
Right. No, I was thinking that the other day. I was like, there probably really aren't. There are times I think when he does manipulate things. Like one time I was driving with my older daughter and it was fall and there was some like leaves on the ground and she's like, Mom, did you see it? There was just like leaves in a random pattern. She's like, the wind blew and they formed a heart really quick. And then I missed it because then they blew them out of the heart. But she saw them
Hmm.
blow into a heart shape and I was like, oh, I missed it. That's such a good sign, you know? And so like I think there are times, but I think 95% of the time he's just directing my attention to a heart that's been there my whole life, you know, been there the whole time, right?
Right.
Didn't notice it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. So, okay. So we were talking about doubts, but also I feel like it's important to talk about how shame plays into this. I was actually just watching the Brene Brown special on Netflix called A Courage. Have you seen it?
Mm. I haven't seen it, but I've heard all of the things about
Ah,
it so far.
so good. I love
People
her.
are liking it.
She talks about vulnerability and she talks about shame. And anyway, so in
Those are
line
her
with
calling cards. Not surprised.
yeah, vulnerability, shame, and what was the other big one that she talks about all the time? I'm blanking. But yeah, not stuff that people don't usually like to talk about. Coming from a traditional Christian background, where this gift can be possibly overlooked or misunderstood, um,
Definitely misunderstood. I would say even like
miscategorized,
demonized.
demonized. Yeah,
Demonized.
yeah. No, I think nobody has a problem with that I've met so far with me connecting to my son. That seems, you know, why not? You're the
It's
mom.
within the limits, right?
Yeah,
That's within like your purview.
right. Okay. And then nobody has an issue with me connecting to my mother in law who died 3 days after my son passed, right? Because she's still connected to me through my family. But what if my mother in law comes to me and she's like, I want you to give a message to this person. And I'm like, why me? Like, what? What do you want me to
It's
do?
awkward.
She's very persistent person. So it's not like you're gonna miss it when she wants to tell you something. She's gonna tell you something, you know? and up to that point, I'd already kind of established that I can talk to people on the other side, experiences with my grandma and my friend's mom, who was like a second mom. And then Wesley, from the get-go, I felt him, the day he died, he was with me. Um, and then she passes and she's like, yeah, I need you to do this. And I'm like, oh man, she's not kidding. She meant it. So yeah, a few times she'd come to me and say, I want you to like deliver this message. I still didn't really think much of it, honestly. I was like, okay, I guess, that's a little strange. But then I realized that that's what somebody who, people do this for as a living. It's something people do, or it's something you can study. And then I realized, oh, so what would be, the world would call, I guess, mediumship. We call it spiritual communication, but it's seen in a negative light, because I also had a friend growing up whose grandma was psychic, and she would pull through negative spirits and weird stuff would happen, and it wasn't a pleasant experience,
Right.
from a child's
It's
point of view.
dangerous.
It
It can
felt
get
dangerous.
dangerous. Right.
Hmm. And so it's kind of
Spiritually,
like
physically,
mhm.
emotionally.
Because it's dangerous, we package it all as dangerous and we put it aside. Like, we don't do that. So then how do I place it when my mother-in-law is like, well, I actually really need you to deliver this message. It's important for my relationship with this
Right.
person. And I need you to do it tonight. It needs to be tonight. I need you to go talk to her right now. Like, oh, okay. Anyway, and then of course, that was like 6 years ago. And then as from 4 years ago, and then as time has gone on, I'm like, oh, people can actually like develop spiritual gifts. I met Elle through our friend, through Rachel, who's been on the podcast. And Rachel and I have this open dialogue about it since Wesley died. And then I realized there's other people that are interested in this too and that have studied it, like Elle. Um, and so I think that's when people get uncomfortable, is like, it's fine if you want to connect to your son. And it's fine if you want to talk to your mother-in-law. And I guess if she has a message, like, if you feel like it's coming from God, or if you feels like there's spiritual light to it, go ahead and do it. But what about if, somebody else comes to me and say, hey, I've heard you have this gift. Can I use it then? Like, for example, I think it was just like months after Wesley died, I'm at this restaurant, and our server, it's a woman, and I feel this female spirit following her everywhere she goes. And I'm like, I'm not going to say anything, but it was so obvious to me. And I'd never had an experience like that, where I wondered, like, should I have said something like, hey, this might weird you out? But I don't know why, but I just feel like there's a female spirit following you around. Like, if you had a grandma pass recently, she's definitely with you, if you were wondering, because like, I can just sense it really strongly. If I was more confident, I would have said that. I didn't say anything, but like, why would God be putting this in my path if I wasn't supposed to do something about it, you know?
I think a lot of people wonder, is God putting it in their path? I mean, that was one of my huge struggles towards the beginning, is like, is this from God or from something else, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know. And the shame that comes with that too is like, because it feels illicit, it feels taboo, it feels edgy, when really it's just because it makes people uncomfortable because they don't understand, or they don't have a context for it, right? Like so many other things, the things that we don't understand make us uncomfortable. And so, that's been something that I've struggled with over the entire course of my life, really. And it's come down to like, at this point, like, I have no doubt that this is from God. And it's a tool. This is what it is. It's a tool. It's a gift. People who are artists have gifts, and they can make beautiful things or they can make horrible things. People who are musicians have gifts. They can make uplifting music, or they can make torturous music that influences people in really negative ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just like anything else, it's a gift.
Yeah.
And it's just a tool. It's just something in your hands that you, through your own agency and choice, can shape to different means, right? So there are people who aren't maybe using it in the best way. And there
Yeah.
are people who are legitimately doing good. I mean, even when you think of like doctors, my brother's in medical school right now. My husband's an attorney. When he was in law school, he read so many law, like, um, what is it called? Cases of malpractice,
Mm-hmm.
horrible malpractice
Mm.
by doctors, right? My husband is, he swore off modern medicine for like a whole year of law school because he's like, can't trust those doctors. They're going to sign their initials on your femur after surgery,
Oh
right?
my
Like,
gosh.
actually happened. Um, my brother his goal is to become an anesthesiologist, and they had a training just this last week about like warning indicators with anesthesiologists because they are more likely to be taking their own juice
Hmm.
and be like compromised during surgeries or during other things because they're high essentially because of their um, ability to access drugs, right? And so it's like just like anything else, it is how you use what it is. It is who
Yeah.
you are and what your intention is to do with something.
Yeah.
Jesus was casting out devils. Jesus was talking to angels. Jesus was doing all those things. And it's similar in the sense that, like, when you are aligned, when you are doing it in a God's way, trying to stay as close to that as possible. The amount of good that can come through something like this. Like literally, I know I've mentioned it before. I have seen people pulled off the edge of suicide. I have seen people like leave depression. I have seen people get hope back in their life. I have seen people have grief, like unresolved issues about like, are they still angry at me for doing this? I'm so sorry that this happened. Like, I need to apologize over this. Like unresolved issues. Find peace and find healing and be able to actually move on in their lives. Miraculous things that don't occur any other way. And how can that be anything but good? But the shame that can come with that from people that just don't yet understand it is a struggle that if you pursue this, it will be something that you enact with. And you have to learn how to have confidence in what your experience is
Yeah.
and in who you are and in what you are doing.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned artists. They can use their gift to do amazing things. There's this one artist that I have a lot of her paintings because I look at her stuff and I'm like, this is what heaven looks like. It's her
Hmm.
use of color, and she uses a palette knife with oils, and she has these like really texturized strokes.
It's called impasto. Yeah.
Yeah, it like pops out and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm there. It feels so real. It's like feels kind of 4D. And I just can't stop buying her paintings. Well, I'm not going to be shopping. I'm budgeting myself, but like I'm obsessed. Like they make me so happy. They help me feel so elevated. I bought her first painting. We had no business buying fine art. My husband, it was the recession. He was kind of working part time. I was working full time. Two babies, financial stress. But somebody had hit my car and like in a parking lot or something, and they scratched it and they said, I'm so sorry. And it was really, really small. It was like a scratch, like a small dent. And they gave me their insurance. And so we ran it through insurance and they paid us $1,200. And I was like, I don't actually really care if I get this fixed, but there's this painting that I saw the other day when I was, window shopping in Laguna Beach. And when I looked at this painting, I felt like the painting was speaking to me. This is going to sound so corny. And I was like telling me, like, your life is kind of in a dump right now. It's okay. Like, there's better and more beautiful things coming for you. Like, you deserve this beautiful full piece of art to elevate you out of your life and realize that there's more for you. It
Yeah.
was like an emblem of hope. And so I bought it. And it was like 2012. So we've had it for a while. And I discovered her art then, and then we would kind of window shop more in Laguna, and we're like, oh, but she does this really incredible wave. We love the ocean. We need to have the wave. She does this incredible tree. I feel like I'm in the Garden of Eden staring at this tree. Like I need the tree.
Just slowly building her house, your
Okay.
house into her paintings.
Right.
Like,
So we're kind of like a little mini gallery at this point, but like they elevate me so much. So her art has this like this power, this gift to it. And then after Wesley passed, we were gifted a picture drawn of him. Um, and it was done by an artist who's like said she's had spiritual experiences as she's drawing because she draws mostly children that have passed on. And she had this experience once where the spirit of the child she was drawing came to her and said, you need to kind of draw me like this. This is how like helping her capture him in a like accurate way so that when the parents looked at the picture they could say, you got it, like that's him, I feel him when I look at this.
right.
She has this amazing gift that, I mean, the world is so much better because she's using it and she's tapping into her spiritual ability to connect to the other side as she's doing it.
Right. I think the other thing that's frequently connected to people who start, they get over that shame hump and they start actually practicing with their gifts is the imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
So like This is huge. Like I'm not good enough to do this. Like this, either this isn't enough, this isn't real. People aren't gonna like trust or believe, or they're going to react poorly, or like I'm just not good enough to do this yet. I'm not good enough to share that impression that I have. I'm not confident enough to share that, so I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen. Like if Rachel, for instance, hadn't shared with you the fact that she had felt Wesley around you, you may never had validation in that sign from him, and you may have always wondered. And how
Hmm.
much has it comforted and shaped your life to know, especially at the beginning of, understanding all of this and your that it was within your reach to know that, oh, like that must be real then, like it must be
Hmm.
true.
Yeah.
But when you have that confidence and you go out, it can be highly effective to other people.
Right. I mean,
So,
I can't imagine my grief journey without that connection to the other side. It's so integral into my journey.
right,
And people, when people say that's so nice for you that you have that, it's like, yes, but if you have the desire to develop it, you can develop it too. It's a gift
right,
from God. He says, like you said, asking you shall receive, like ask for good gifts. So I think that it's not just I'm so lucky to have it. It's a choice as well. Am I going to develop this or not?
right. And
For
that's
me,
important because there's
yeah.
work that goes into that.
There is a lot of work. I know, like we were just talking about, like I meditate daily now, guys. It might be guided most of the time, but I'm turning it on and I'm pressing play and I'm sitting in it and I'm letting it do like, run its magic through me or whatever. I'm focusing, I'm stilling, I'm separating myself from chaos, I'm breathing, I'm setting intention. But for me with practicing this gift, there's definitely that imposter syndrome around those things, but then there's also that shame, like, should I even be doing this? Because then that religious stigma comes back into my mind, like, I could be so misunderstood. Am I misunderstanding?
Right, right. And there is always that, like, one of the biggest hurdles that I had with that particularly is like, I don't want to be deceived.
Mm,
I don't want to be deceived by, the adversary. I don't want to be deceived by anyone else. And I don't want to be deceived by me. Like my imagination or whatever this is, if it's not true, like if it's not real.
yeah.
And that goes back to the imposter syndrome too. It's like, well, is it? Can I believe this? Can I trust this? Because a lot of trust has to go into what that is. And how do you trust something? I'm not a trusting person. That is like one of my weak points.
But I
Skepticism
am a
and
trusting
trust.
person, and that's one of my weak points too, right?
Well, and it's just like because there aren't a lot of physical indicators a lot for things like spiritual experiences. But it goes back to faith too. Like what indicators do you have to believe anything, really? Anything that isn't in front of you. What is there proof that love is real, that love exists, that your bond with someone, your family, your partner, your parent, your child, that is a true and solid thing? Like what is there to prove that? It's a feeling. It's insubstantial. And spiritual experiences are the same way, whether it is communicating with your son who's passed away, communicating with God, whether it's feeling the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit while you're sitting at church and you're listening to music or something like that. Like it is insubstantial. And it goes back to that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, right? There
Hmm.
is a whole nother facet of life and reality that is insubstantial. And putting your faith into that is when you reach the richness of what life is, right? When
Yeah.
you get below the surface of something and you really dig into that, those things that aren't always seen, that aren't always tangible in front of you. That's when you experience the richness of life, whether that is diving into yourself and learning about who you are, diving into emotions, getting over trauma, healing, whether that is trusting someone like your partner, your spouse, and really developing that kind of connection and relationship with them, whether that is with God or
Hmm.
Christ or, your son through the veil. That is the richness of life.
Yeah. And like when I had met you a year and a half ago, I had already had enough validating experiences with Wesley and other people, like not just Rachel, but I had a friend say, I'm seeing a lot of blue things lately. That was his favorite color. I don't think it's just that I'm seeing blue. Like I feel like he's trying to just connect with me and it's really been helping me. I feel like your son's helping me.
Hmm.
I had a first responder come to the house and say, I feel him around me. And I can't really explain this. I've never had this experience before. I feel like he's helping me through these this tough, job that I have where I deal with death all the time, even with young people. I feel like he's comforting me in a way that is so unexpected. He's like, I can't believe I'm even here telling you this on my day off, but like, I feel like your son's with me. Is that okay for me to share? And it's like, thank you for sharing that. Like, I'm sure Wesley gave him that confidence. Like, go tell my mom and dad. Like, they're gonna think it's really cool, and they're gonna want to know. So the point when I had met you a couple, year and a half ago, I already was very confident that Wesley's around, and I can communicate with him and at least sense him regularly, right? And so when Rachel said, "Oh, I met somebody who has the same gift, that she and I share," but she's like, "But she has it to the level where she can actually connect to other people's people." And I was like, "Oh, well, I want to." And she's like, "And she connected to my grandma, and it was really cool." I was like, "Well, I'd love to see, what her if she can connect to Wesley and what she gets." Because I'm already really like solid in my relationship with Wesley on the other side of the veil. I mean, he's been gone almost 4 years at this point, right? So when we had our session and Elle starts bringing through his like characteristics and he's bopping his head and he's really excited and his head keeps tilting to the side when he's talking, like, and she gave all, so much evidence on physical characteristics and things he'd love to do and personality traits. Like, you're just describing my son, like, how do I know that how come I didn't doubt that you could connect to Wesley? Because I felt him with me when you were saying all those things.
Right.
And even if I didn't know what it felt like to feel him and I couldn't like connect to that, the way that you had all this evidence. So that's really what this gift is. There's got to be some type of evidence, and then there's the message, and the healing comes in both. Like, yes, that confidence, we're connecting to the right person, and then the message, the fruits of the spirit are like love, and you feel connected and healing, and it feels good. If you're having that experience, that's validating as well. Like, that helps take away some of that shame or those doubts and say, this is a wholesome experience. This is bringing me closer to my son. It's bringing
Right.
me closer to God. I feel closer to heaven. I feel more trusting of this, topsy-turvy experience I'm having on earth where I'm here and then my son dies unexpectedly and it's like, it feels awful, but this puts more trust in the plan. We're still connected. We're going to be together again. We're just separated right now and it's hard, but we still get to have these little moments where we touch base. And it's beautiful.
I think one of the key indicators of knowing like one from the other, like when something is legitimate versus when something is not, or when something is like good, when something is from God, when something is, you know, not evil, not
Mhm.
bad, which so many people lump this in with because of caution or because of fear or because of negative stories or hearsay or what have you. When you experience something and you feel the goodness of it, that's an indicator that you can't argue with. Like the Holy Ghost bears witness of truth and light and love and God. That's one of his primary jobs, his functions. And so when you are having that experience, and I tell people all the time in sessions, I'm like, if you don't feel that feeling, we're doing something wrong and we need to shift gears or we need to stop because like that's essential to prove the point of this being good, this
Mhm.
being light, this being love, this being of God, right? And so like it's undeniable when you have that experience. If you have the opposite experience where it's making you feel that darkness, feel further from God, feeling further from hope and faith and light and love. And it feels um, scary. And I will say there's a difference between you being afraid or uncomfortable with something because of your own bias versus having something be not good, having something be actually threatening or intimidating or scary or there's a difference between your emotions and the nature of what something is, right? But if you are sensing that nature of what that is, being something of darkness, that's completely different. And we usually have pretty decent sense of what that is if we're being honest with ourselves.
Right.
So I think that that's really important. But also like setting expectations for what, like if you do happen to have a session or you go in to talk to somebody or somebody approaches you with something like this, like having an expectation of what that's going to be. Um, I think that's really important because I get people all the time, clients who come in or people that I give sessions to, and they want most interesting information.
Very
It's
specific.
like,
What was the
Right.
name of my third grade teacher?
Right. What was my street address when I was 6? Like I literally had people ask me that before, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, don't ask me that.
Like, that's not what this
Like,
is for. It's not a
yeah, I'm
party
not
trick.
God. I was like,
I know
I
the
don't know what
point
you're
of
doing. You were
this
sick.
is to give enough evidence that you know you're connecting to the right person, and then share those messages of love or, protection or whatever, like that you feel like those messages that need to come through. That's really what it's about. It's not like, let's see how, it's detailed and specific. It's not a
Right. And
charade.
even setting, it's not a party trick.
Yeah.
I mean, I've told people things at parties, but it's not a party trick. Um, Even setting your own expectation too, I think, and that's part of the imposter syndrome as well, is like, okay, yeah, you're gifted. Even if you can't pick up on somebody's 6-year-old address, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that what this is not valid. Because of the way that spiritual communication, we can call it revelation, we can call it inspiration, however you want to phrase this, because of the way it functions, intuition functions, you can't, it's not necessarily controllable. It's developable, it's strengthenable, but it's like you're not going to dictate what Uncle Joe is going to tell you because he's
Yes.
going to tell you what he's going to tell you, and he may have a completely different agenda than you do or than your client does, right?
Yeah.
So if you want this piece of information and they don't give it to you, don't walk away disappointed because it's not my fault. It's not his
Yeah.
fault. It's
You can't
your fault.
control the whole process.
Right.
Yeah. I do want to say, I had a friend tell me that she did a session with, I think it was an energy worker, and the energy worker kind of forcefully told her some information about herself that she didn't feel was right or true, like something that had
Mhm.
happened to her in her past, some type of abuse. And she said, I don't think so. And she was really adamant, no, this happened to you. And I'm feeling this, and you need to work on this. And it was this person that did this to you. And it was very damaging. So if you're ever working with somebody and they're like, it feels like they have an agenda,
Yeah, that's
and
unethical.
they're trying to like maybe even tell you what to do, kind of like impact your agency, like you have to do this. That's shady, definitely shady. And then you're going to want to put your like alarms on for that. You have to kind of have use your own discernment, right?
Right. Discernment is really important. It's
Yeah.
important on our end and it's important on their end as well. And I
Hmm.
talk about this a lot, but I'll talk about it again. Like ethics are really important. You want to find somebody who is aware of what boundaries are and sticks within them. It should never impact your future. If somebody tells you,
Oh, right.
like you need to go buy a lottery ticket because you're going to win the lotto, like silly example. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's
If
not
that were
them
true, you'd be like
dictating
a
that.
billionaire right now. We'd both be like,
Right. Like oftentimes inspiration, communication, it doesn't happen that way. There are certainly moments where it is crystal clear. Like I have heard like a telephone, right? Where somebody is talking to me in my ear. I hear their voice, I hear the quality of their voice as if they're sitting next to me talking to me in my ear. I have seen people in photograph movie clarity
mm-hmm.
showing me things, but other times it is just a really strong feeling or a really strong impression. And sometimes it's not the way that you want with because different spirits communicate in different ways, right? So if you're like, I have to know his name specifically, and his name is like, I don't know, like LeBronany or something like Casey. And I'm like, I'm not going to get that. I'm sorry. Like, that's not within my frame of reference. It's
Right. It
not
has to be within
within
your frame of
my
reference.
understanding. Right.
Yeah.
And so it takes so much more effort and so much more energy for a spirit to bring that through and like give me that exact information in that exact way because it's nothing that I would ever be familiar with. When it
Yeah.
is a lot easier, quicker, faster, efficient for them to bring through information of things that are more within my frame. What do people look like? Like,
Hmm.
what do personalities feel like?
Yeah.
Like, what was his hobby? What was his job? What was his detail of things like
Hmm.
things that I am are within my knowledge, my ability to understand or experience. And then we can get much more quickly to the important information, right?
Yeah.
Not to say that those things don't happen, but if they don't happen, it's not the end of the world and it doesn't mean that it didn't actually happen.
Right. Right. I remember there was a time that there's an allegory in my faith background that's this tree, and there's this like straight path to this tree, and the tree represents the love of God. And it's got this really amazing fruit, and it's like kind of your life journey leading you back to God in Christ, right? And you can have moments with them while you're alive too, but you got to like kind of stay on that straight and narrow path to find them. And I was thinking about it, and there's also part of this allegory where after people make it to the tree and they're tasting this amazing fruit, they're kind of looking around like, what are other people doing? And they see other people that didn't have the desire to get to the fruit, and they are kind of like having a party, and they're making fun of the people that were eating the fruit. And some of the people got ashamed and they walked away and they went over to the party, so to speak. And I was thinking about it in relation to my gift. For the first time ever, I was thinking, this has to do, it just kind of the spirit hit me and was like, I want you to think about this in terms of this spiritual gift. There's times where you doubt it, and there's times where you feel ashamed. Like, should I even be doing this? Or do I even have the right to do this? Like that imposter syndrome. Does God really want me doing this? And to what extent, you know? And the spirit was like, don't be ashamed of the gifts I've given you. I want you to use them, and you don't need to have that shame. Like look away from it. Like walk away from the shame. Don't let it affect you. I put you here for a reason. You're on the path you're supposed to be on. Trust it. And that was really an amazing experience because, you know, I'm a conscientious person. I've been a rule follower, minus a few like fun little things I've done here and there. I've been a rule follower my whole life. And I was very much a black and white thinker for a lot of my life. And so this is more of a nuanced thing. And so for him to be like, listen, stop like succumbing to shame. I put you here for a reason was really cool. So I think that like wherever you are, you know, with your interest in these gifts, it's just trust that, you know, if you're supposed to be using them in your life, God, you can ask and he'll tell you. And it's individual, of course, but it's really cool how we can have that conversation with God, and he can like let us know what's going on and help us feel validated in what we're doing, whether or not we feel like it has people understand it or approve of it or condone it or even understand it whatsoever. Like they, you know, relate to it in any way or not. Like we're all here to do individual things, and that's okay.
Right. And I am a huge proponent of the individual journey. Like I really think, the path in that allegory, that path is representational of like the path leading to God, the path back home, right? And that path looks a bit different for everybody based on personal needs, personal experience, personal personality, like
Mm-hmm.
and what they're supposed to learn and grow from in this lifetime and what they're supposed to do even, right? How we are capable of giving to other people. And it's not like the Lord wants to keep that from us. He's like, no, this is secret. You wait for it. He's
Yeah.
like, if you want it, ask me. I'll give you signs. Like, I might not tell you all of it yet because you aren't ready for it yet. You have to build up to where you need to go. And to do that, you have to experience these things. But I'll show you where to put your feet. Yeah, right? And so
Yeah.
um, like trusting in that, I think is huge on finding where that path leads. And so I'm a huge proponent of like, well, seek it out, pray for it, pray about it. And I mean, I've had a really, really good friend of mine. Um, she had been to a lot of sessions with me, like she had been really involved in a lot of this. And with her praying about it, it was just like I had been kind of mentoring her in development of spirit communication as well as other things. And when she finally came to a point in her life, she prayed about it and she's like, I need to pause this right now. I need to step away from this right now because I have other things that are more important.
Other
And that's her
priorities.
path.
Yeah.
Right. And that's her path. And that's completely legit. Like she has things that she needs to do that are meant for her right now, where I have things that I need to do. And both of those things do not like devalue the other thing.
Right.
It just happens to be that they're in different directions at the
Her
moment
life
where they're
mission
supposed
is
to
pulling
be.
her a different way. She's got other priorities.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. She has other ways to serve.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge thing too. Pray about what you're meant to do. Pray about, if you're meant to pursue something or if it's not for you, it's not important right now in what you're meant to be doing. So, and it's still okay to have an interest in something, even if it's not, what you're supposed to actively jump into at the time.
Right. You can dabble. Dabble
Think there's a
away.
bad, it's never bad to increase your spirituality in any sense. Anything that brings you closer to God, go for that thing. It's never a bad thing.
Right. All right. Well, with that, we are excited about a guest that we're bringing to you next week. And thanks so much for being here and listening. See you guys next time.
See you next time.
Bye.